The morning light filtered through the tall glass windows of a grand hotel lobby, painting gold streaks across marble floors polished to perfection. Every sound echoed softly, the clink of coffee cups, the low hum of conversations, the distant melody of a piano. At a corner table sat Ethan Walker, a man whose name commanded respect across the city. CEO of one of the largest real estate empires, he had built his fortune brick by brick, deal by deal, and had lost count of how many lives his business decisions had changed. Yet for all his success, Ethan carried an invisible emptiness, one that neither luxury nor power could fill. He stared down at the newspaper in his hands, but his mind was elsewhere. The headlines screamed numbers and mergers, but his heart was still haunted by the loneliness he pretended didn't exist. It had been 6 years since his wife Amelia died suddenly in an accident. Since that day, his heart had become a fortress, cold and closed to emotion. As he sat lost in thought, a small voice broke the silence beside him. "Mr. Can you read this letter for me? It's very important." Ethan turned his head slowly and saw a little girl, no more than 5 or 6, standing shyly with an envelope in her tiny hands. Her red dress was slightly wrinkled, her shoes scuffed, and her curls framed her face with innocent determination. She held the letter tightly, as if it were the most valuable thing in the world. "Where's your mom, sweetheart?" Ethan asked, surprised by the child's sudden appearance. "She's outside," the girl whispered softly, eyes darting toward the glass doors. "She told me to find someone kind who could help me read this. She said, it's very important, something." In her tone, a mix of urgency and innocence made Ethan lower his paper completely. "All right," he said, placing his paper on the table. "Let's see what you've got there." The girl carefully handed over the letter, her small fingers trembling slightly. Ethan noticed the paper was worn and folded many times. The ink faded as if handled for days. As he unfolded it, his eyes caught the first line written in neat handwriting. "To the kind person who finds this letter, please help my daughter, Lily." He felt his chest tighten as he continued reading. The letter was from a woman named Grace, explaining that she had fallen ill and could no longer afford proper treatment or even a home for her little girl. "I don't want my daughter to grow up alone or in the streets," the letter read. "If someone finds this, please help her find safety. She's a good girl." "Her name is Lily." Ethan blinked, unsure if what he was reading was real. He looked back at the girl, Lily, who was watching him anxiously, her big brown eyes full of hope. "Did your mom write this?" he asked gently. She nodded. "She said I should give it to someone who looks nice." Ethan swallowed hard, feeling something stir deep inside him, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "Where is your mom now?" he asked again. Lily turned and pointed toward the glass doors. "Outside, near the bench. She said she's tired." Ethan stood immediately, motioning for the girl to follow. When they stepped outside, the cold breeze brushed against their faces. On a nearby bench sat a woman with pale skin, thin and weak, wrapped in a worn coat. She lifted her head slowly when she saw Lily and smiled faintly. "You found someone?" she whispered. Lily nodded proudly. "Yes, Mommy. He said he'd help." Ethan approached carefully, realizing just how frail the woman looked. Her eyes, though tired, carried the same warmth as her daughter's. "You must be Grace," he said softly, handing her the letter. She nodded, her voice faint. "I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want Lily to see me like this, but I had to try something." Ethan hesitated for a moment, then sat down beside her. "You don't have to explain. I understand." She looked at him in disbelief. "Why would a man like you understand?" she asked bitterly, glancing at his expensive suit. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Because once I lost someone too, and I know what it's like to feel helpless." Grace's eyes softened, her strength fading with each breath. "I just want Lily to have a chance. She's smart, kind. She deserves more than I can give." Ethan looked at the little girl, who was now sitting on the bench beside her mother, holding her hand. He saw his late wife's reflection in that child, her innocence, her hope, her quiet strength. Moments later, Grace coughed violently and panic filled Lily's face. Ethan immediately called for help, his voice echoing through the empty street. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived, but Grace was slipping fast. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, she reached for Ethan's hand. "Promise me," she whispered weakly, "that you'll take care of her. At least until she finds a family." Ethan froze, unable to speak, then finally nodded. "I promise." Grace smiled faintly, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "Thank you." That night Ethan couldn't sleep. Lily sat quietly in his office, her little feet swinging above the ground, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She didn't cry, but her silence broke him in ways nothing else ever had. As the city lights flickered outside his window, Ethan realized the world wasn't as black and white as business taught him. Sometimes one letter could change everything. And though he didn't know what the future held, one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Before the night ended, Lily finally looked up at him and said softly, "Thank you for reading Mommy's letter." Ethan smiled gently. "No, Lily," he whispered. "Thank you for bringing it to me." He didn't know it yet, but the letter he read that morning would be the beginning of something far greater than a promise. It would be the start of redemption, love, and a journey that would shatter the walls around his heart. For Grace's passing, he took Lily under his care temporarily. At least that's what he told himself. He arranged everything: a private school, a warm room in his house, new clothes, and meals she never had to worry about again. But what he didn't expect was how quickly the little girl filled the silence of his mansion with laughter and warmth. Her giggles echoed down halls that once only knew the sound of ticking clocks and distant rain. Ethan began coming home early, something he hadn't done in years. He found himself helping Lily with puzzles, reading her bedtime stories, even cooking breakfast on weekends, terribly, but she loved it. Every day with her reminded him of something precious he'd buried long ago: love without condition. But one rainy afternoon changed everything. Lily had been quieter than usual, sitting by the window with a small notebook in her lap. When Ethan asked what she was doing, she said softly, "Writing a letter." He smiled, trying to sound playful. "Another one? Who's it for this time?" She looked up, her eyes shimmering. "For Mommy. I want to send it to heaven." Ethan froze, his heart aching. "Can I read it?" he asked gently. Lily nodded and handed it over. The note was written in her uneven handwriting, but every word hit him like a storm. "Dear Mommy," it began, "I'm okay. The nice man you sent me to is really kind. He makes pancakes and lets me draw in his office. He doesn't smile much, but I think he's learning. Sometimes I see him looking sad when he thinks I'm not watching. Maybe he misses someone too. Mommy, if you can hear me, can you tell him it's okay to smile again? Because I think he forgot how. I love you, Lily." By the time Ethan finished reading, his eyes were burning. He excused himself quickly, stepping into his study and closing the door before the tears fell. That small letter, written in crayon and innocence, broke through the last piece of armor he had left. He realized that Grace hadn't just left him a child. She'd left him a second chance at being human again. Months later, Ethan took Lily to the park where he and Amelia once dreamed of building a family. They sat on a bench, sharing ice cream, watching other children play. "Ethan," Lily said suddenly, "do you think Mommy can see us right now?" He smiled faintly. "I think she can, Lily, and I think she's proud." She nodded thoughtfully, then handed him a folded piece of paper. "I wrote another letter," she said. "But this one's for you." Ethan unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was a little neater now. "Dear Ethan," it said, "thank you for keeping your promise. You're my family now. Mommy said if I ever found someone kind, I should tell them I love them before it's too late. So I love you." That was the moment Ethan's heart shattered and healed all at once. He pulled Lily into his arms, holding her tightly as tears ran down his face. For the first time in years, he wasn't crying out of loss, but gratitude. He finally understood Grace's final wish wasn't just for Lily to be safe. It was for both of them to find love again. As time passed, Ethan legally adopted Lily. The house that once echoed with emptiness now overflowed with joy. On weekends, they'd visit Grace's resting place, leaving letters tied to balloons, sending them toward the sky. One sunny afternoon, Lily asked, "Do you think she gets them?" Ethan smiled through his tears. "Every single one." That night, Ethan sat by his desk, looking at the original letter, the one Lily had handed him in that hotel lobby months ago. It was faded, fragile, but priceless. He framed it and placed it above his fireplace, a reminder of how a simple act of kindness changed two lives forever. In his next board meeting, when asked about his company's future, Ethan surprised everyone. He announced a new foundation named the Lily Project, dedicated to helping homeless children find families. "Because every letter deserves to be read," he said softly, glancing at Lily sitting proudly in the audience. The story of the ruthless CEO who became a father went viral, but fame no longer mattered to Ethan. What mattered was the little girl who taught him how to live again. As Lily grew, she continued to write letters, sometimes to her mother, sometimes to the stars, but her final one, written years later, said it all. "Dear Mommy, your wish came true. He's happy now, and so am I." The letter floated away on a soft breeze, disappearing into the golden sunset, a final goodbye and a beautiful beginning.